Welcome to Hockey Whiz Talks podcast. Today I'll be talking about disappointing players and disappointing NHL teams this season. In this podcast, I talk about disappointing players and teams in the NHL this season. Disappointing players. Christian Dvorak. Christian Dvorak is playing with Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher, as well as the first power play unit in Montreal. He has 5 points and is a minus 14 through the first 14 games of the season. Dvorak hasn't quite lived up to his expectations and has the second worst plus-minus in the entire NHL. Maxime Comtois. Maxime Comtois is having a sophomore slump so far this year. He only has 1 point in 12 games and is a minus 6. He is playing on the third line of the Ducks alongside Mason McTavish and Isaac Ludestrom, as well as the second power play unit. The worrying thing about Comtois is that at times he was bumped to the fourth line and was even scratched for a game. Cole Cowfield. Cole Cowfield had sky-high expectations of him this year, but he only has 1 point in 10 games and is a minus 3. After 10 games, Cowfield was sent to Laval, the Habs AHL affiliate, for the time being. He could benefit from spending some time in the AHL for his development. Jacob Chichurin. Jacob Chichurin only has 1 point in 12 games and is a minus 20 so far this year. This is a massive disappointment considering he is getting all the ice time that OEL used to get with the team. Chichurin might need time to adjust to being the number one defenseman for the Coyotes. John Klingberg. John Klingberg has 2 points and is a minus 6 through 7 games this year, and is seeing less playing time than in previous seasons. Klingberg has declined in his production every year, and it might only get worse as Miro Heiskanen's role on the team grows. Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury is having one of the worst starts to a season that he's ever had in his career. We need to go back to the 2005-2006 season, Fleury's rookie year, when Fleury last had a losing record. Fleury has a 2-7 record with a 3.81 GAA and a .892 save percentage in 9 starts. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on anchor.fm/hockeywiz777scouting. Disappointing NHL teams this year. Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens were expected to be a mediocre team this year when Carey Price announced that he would miss a portion of the season. However, nobody expected them to be as bad as they have been. Montreal has the second worst record in the league, with a 3-10-1 record this year. Montreal very well could end up tanking the season in attempts to land Shane Wright in the upcoming draft. Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks had pretty high expectations of them this year after acquiring Marc-Andre Fleury and Seth Jones. But so far, Chicago has the 4th worst record in the league with a 3-9-2 record and don't seem to be getting any better unless they add other players. Bearing a drastic turnaround, Chicago could end up with one of the worst records in the entire NHL. Vegas Golden Knights. The Vegas Golden Knights were expected to be a top team in the league this year, but early season injuries to Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty have thrown a wrench in their plans. Vegas traded for Jack Eichel, but he isn't expected to be ready to play until at least March. Vegas will need some of their other players to step up in the absence of Eichel, Stone, and Pacioretty. Colorado Avalanche. The Colorado Avalanche were expected to be one of the best teams in the league this year, but injuries have held them back to living up to those expectations. Nathan MacKinnon will miss the next 3 weeks, so we will get to see how good this team is without their best player. Vancouver Canucks. The Vancouver Canucks had high expectations heading into the season, but so far this year, the Canucks have a 5-6-2 record. There is still tons of time to turn the season around, and with the division they play in, the Canucks could very well push for a playoff berth. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. Injuries and COVID have played a major factor in why some teams mentioned above are struggling out of the gate. Colorado, Vegas, and Montreal in particular have been hit hard by both injuries and COVID, and that has caused those teams to have subpar starts to the season. Colorado and Vegas should be fine once they get everybody back and healthy. However, I'm not sure about the other teams. In my next podcast, I'll be talking about players to trade for and trade away in fantasy hockey.